Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Melanie here from Mels Inky Fingers. Thank you so much for joining me. It is time for another Friday focus. So we are going to be making these really cute cards today featuring the Blueberry Bunches stamp set. And then I have pulled in a variety of other products that we're going to take a peek at. So let me make sure that I'm live in the right place and that you can hear me. I'll give everyone just a minute or two to find me to make sure that they can join along with us creating today. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. You can clearly hear me. All right, so I have everything set up so I can see your comments. When you jump on, say hello. Let me know you're here. I always enjoy knowing who I get to spend some time with on Fridays. I look forward to this all week. So I hope you had a great week and that you have something fun to look forward to this weekend. So we have started a brand new month today. It's hard to believe that we are already in March. Like, what happened? Spring is here. So it is feeling spring-like in Northwest Ohio, actually. We are enjoying a sunny day today, and it looks really nice out, but it's a little chilly. But that's okay. I don't mind the chill when there's sun. So I'm hoping that that we're not being fooled and that we actually are going to get spring, because I'm ready for it. I say bring it. All right, so when you jump on, say hello. Let me know you're here, and then we are going to get started making these really pretty cards using the Blueberry Bunches stamp set. Now, this stamp set is out of the January to April mini catalog. I know I have been using a lot of the celebration items, but celebration's done. So now I'm really going to enjoy playing with a lot of oh, look at this is very similar to the card that we made today, except I changed up the dies. So these projects are really cute. And what I love most about this stamp set is that you can really focus on different coloring techniques to make it whatever you want. So today I'm going to show you some tips for watercoloring and using blends. So one of these was made with Stampin' Blends. This one was made with watercoloring. So you'll get to see a couple different ways to use this. This would also be a great set to use your watercolor pencils. Sorry, I'm trying to get my light reflection out of the way without sacrificing and making the picture dark. So I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just trying to move that out of the way there. All right. So a couple of announcements. There is going to be a product release with new online exclusives coming up. I'm going to jump on and give you a peek of those. I'm hoping sometime over the weekend, but the weekend is crazy. Between lacrosse and hockey, we have 7 games this weekend in 2 different cities. So we're going to be on the go. I don't know what time I'm going to be able to jump on, but stay tuned. If you like and follow me here on this page, you'll get a notification when I go live so you won't miss it. And if you do miss it, not a problem. You can come back here and see all the videos on replay because everything is recorded and stored right here on Facebook for you to enjoy when it's most convenient for you. So stay tuned for those new products, and I have a class that's going to be kicking off that is going to be available to anybody. So I would love to have you join. So all that information is coming. So the January to April mini catalog, we're already, we're halfway through. January and February are done. We're in the 3rd of 4 months of this catalog. This catalog will retire April 30th. So if you have not kind of taken a dive into this catalog to really see how amazing the stuff in here is, please do so. It really is pretty incredible. And I know that you're really going to find things that you love in here. I've showcased quite a few of the products already, but there's still a lot that I haven't even touched. So hopefully you've taken some time to really peruse this and have found some favorites in there, one of which is this stamp set. So we are going to use this stamp set on both projects and then pull in some different designer series papers, embellishments, ribbons, and other things. so that you can see how versatile this set can be when you're creating. So the first card that I think we're going to make is going to be this one. And this die set that I have pulled in is one that I used last week, and I wanted to give you another peek at it. So this is called the Thoughtful Expressions die set, and it's part of a really pretty suite. And actually that suite is shown right next to the blueberry set. Oh, nope, sorry, wrong one. That's Everyday Details. Never mind. Thoughtful Expressions. It has a lot of dies, as you can see, and what I love most about these is that you get 2 different shapes and multiple sizes of each, so that you can do some really great layering. And they have both stitched and pierced details on the dies, which then come onto your project. So you can see the pretty stitching detail here in the negative space, but I should have grabbed the pieces that I die cut. But they're also on the die cuts themselves. So these dies put the stitch detail both on the outside for the negative space and the die itself. So no matter which way you use your die, you get to enjoy those pretty details. And on this beautiful shape, it's pierced detail, and again, both on the outside for your negative space and on the die itself. So really pretty. And then of course you have open dies because these do coordinate with the stamp set, but I'm just featuring the dies for some labels and creative card openings on this card today. So let me show you what you're going to need to create this card. And the second card you're going to actually help me create by helping me pick supplies. Hi, Polly, welcome. Thanks for joining. Happy Friday. I hope you're looking forward to a nice weekend and you're wrapping up your week. All right, so let me get all my supplies here. And we're going to focus on some Stampin' Blends for this particular card. So then we'll use some watercoloring on the next one. So to create this project, I used a basic white card base. And now we're going to be layering both on the inside and the front. So you could use regular basic white for this, or you could use thick basic white. It's your choice. So hi, Janet. Welcome. Thanks for joining. I know you're wrapping up your week. All right. Oh boy. You know what? I have so I'm missing supplies because I pilfered them off my desk. So I am wrapping up my prep. If you're a demonstrator and you're going to Stampin' Up! On stage in Houston in just a couple weeks, you know that, well, you may know that I'm hosting a demonstrator only event. It's full, it's closed. So, and I've been finishing my prep. So I've pulled supplies off my video space here because I've been using them to finish getting things ready as I'm on the road and waiting in parking lots for games to start and during practices. And so I've been getting things done. I'm missing a pair of scissors and I am missing my bone folder, I see. So, but we'll make do. Hi, Brenda. Welcome. It's nice to have you here. All right. So you could use a regular basic white or a thick basic white card base because we're going to be layering. Then you can choose a piece of designer series paper. I have decided to go with, I pulled the wrong bin. Hold on. Switcheroo. No, I got it right. So I have chosen to use the Glorious Gingham designer series paper pack. This is a 6x6 paper pack that has a larger and a small scale plaid print, and it's available in 5 colors. It's the same patterns, those 2 plaids. I love this. I have used this a ton. And this color is actually Blueberry Bushel, which is kind of my inspiration. It works great for blueberries, right? I mean, blueberries are blue. So we're going to use a piece, and you can use both the large or the small scale. Since I did this one with the big one, I'll do this one with the small one, and then you can decide which one you like better. So I cut this 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 because it's going to cover my whole card front. Now you're also going to want a piece of thick basic white for the inside. This is going to layer inside your card. And I also cut this 4 1/4, just a hair smaller than 5 1/2 so that it fits. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to be coloring on the inside of the card with Stampin' Blends. If I stamp right on the card itself, I will have bleeding to the back side of the card and it will look messy. So you will want to either put a layer on the very back or color and adhere your layer inside. It's up to you, doesn't matter. Either way will work just fine. So that's why you could use regular basic white for this. Since you're going to be layering it, it'll give you a nice sturdy card base. Then you're going to want just a little piece of designer series paper to put behind your little sentiment label. And all I did was, when I cut this down, this was a 6 by 6, so I needed 5 1/2. I saved that extra 1/2 inch piece that I cut off the bottom just to add a little touch of variation for my front. And then you're going to want a little piece of basic white to stamp and die cut your sentiment out of. And we're going to use the other shape, the smallest of this rounder shape for the sentiment, and the largest shape to cut out our window. So this is kind of like a little peekaboo card. So let's start by adhering our front to the card base, and I'll do the smaller scale. And I want to keep my adhesive on the outside edge of my card because I'm going to be cutting out the center and I don't want that adhesive to gum up my die. Plus, whoops, let's get the card base. Plus, you will then be able to use, you'll get 2 different pieces that you can use on other projects. So let me show you what I mean by that. So let's adhere this in place. And now let's take out the biggest die from this Thoughtful Expressions die set. I love these. So I'm going to pull out this one. And since I'm here, I'm going to pull out, I guess it's the second. No, I guess it is the smallest, does work. The smallest rounder shape. That'll be for my sentiment. So I'll just set that aside for later. All right. So I'm going to take this and run this through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, but you want to make sure you open your card so that you don't cut the back. We only want to cut through the front. And I'm going to center this. You could make it off center if you wanted to make a little room for your sentiment over here. That would still be pretty. Wherever you want it, you could offset it up. Doesn't matter. So let me take this and run this through. All right, so I ran this through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and now here's what I mean when I say you're going to have 2 pieces to use on other projects. Since this isn't, I kept my adhesive on the outside, this is not stuck together. So now look at, you have 2 labels that you can tuck inside your die set, and what I do is I take mine and I put it right in the envelope, because then when I want this shape, I can look and see what I have cut. And sometimes I just pull out of there and I don't have to cut another one. It's a time saver. So let's see, I wish I had my bone folder. We'll make do. Okay, so here is our card base. So now you have your peekaboo window, and we're going to stamp right in that space to make sure that everything is lined up okay. So I'm going to stamp on my card insert, so I'll just kind of tuck it in there so it's in the right space, and pull out some Memento black ink, and I'm going to use the smaller of the 2 blueberry bunches. You have one that's a little bigger with stems and one that's a little smaller without stems. They're both very pretty. So I'm going to ink this up. I just tried to use the cap. Did you see that? So I'm just taking my Memento black ink, and I'm making sure this is inked up nicely. This is a fabric pad, so I always make sure that I ink it really, really good. And then you just put your image where you want it. And I'm just going to give it a second for this black to transfer because I want a really nice black image. So I'm just going to really give that black ink time to transfer. And then look at how nice that turns out. All right. So while I'm giving this just a second to dry, let's talk about how we're going to color this. So for this particular project, I decided to color it with Stampin' Blends. So I pulled in Blueberry Bushel, and I have both the light and the dark, and I pulled in Granny Apple Green, both the light and the dark. And then so that I could add a little bit of detailing to the vining in the leaves, I pulled in my dark Old Olive as well. And then I wanted my blueberries to have a little more definition than just one color. So I also brought in my Balmy Blue, and I'm going to use that to blend my color as well. You could also use Tahitian Tide, would be a really nice blue. You could use Boho Blue if you wanted it a little dustier, like a little more of a dusty blue. So lots of different blues would work. And then of course, I decided to do lots of splattering, including adding some Wink of Stella. So we're going to have some of that in here as well. So let's get started with our coloring. Let's do our blueberries first. The first thing I'm going to do is take my dark Balmy Blue, and I'm going to decide where I want my little light blue spots. And I'm just going to add those in. And it can be, you know, sometimes blueberries have a little spot on them where the color is lighter. So I'm just going to add that in first, and that will kind of protect that space from the darker colors that you add so that you keep that little spot. Hi, Tracy, welcome. Thanks for jumping on. All right, so now I'm going to color the rest of my blueberry except for this little like flowery spot. I'm going to leave that because I'm going to make that a darker color. So I'm just going to kind of come in with my light Blueberry Bushel and color everywhere else. And I'm using my brush tip. If you prefer your bullet tip, you can do that. That's fine. And I'm going to color all these blueberries. And really, if you color over that flower part here, it's really okay because I'm just going to add some dark Blueberry Bushel to that. So don't knock yourself out trying to color around it. But you don't want to color in the light spot because that is going to be, you won't be able to make that lighter once you get that dark color on there. All right, so I'm just bringing in this dark color. I'm not really going to blend much of it now. And then I'm going to come in with my dark Blueberry Bushel, and I'm going to add just the dark shading here. And I'm going to go over these a couple of times so that you get some more definition, but we're going to start with one layer of the darker. Okay, and then as this dries, you can come in and layer. You can layer the same color over itself over and over, and it will continue to make it darker, which is really kind of nice. Okay, so now while that dries, you can see that there's some color variation, but it's not really blended very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my light Balmy Blue. I'm going to kind of use that as my blender, and I'm just going to kind of come around the edge of where that light color is and just make that a little wet so that it helps to blend that color. So I'm using it kind of like a color lifter to keep the color away from that, but you can see it's already blending better. You can see it softening the edges of that color transition. And then let's come back in and add another layer of dark. You could also hit this with Starry Sky, would be another great Stampin' Blends color. You could hit this with a little bit of Night of Navy. So you could use a lot of different colors to make it dark. And now I'm just going to leave it alone. And I'm going to let those colors continue to blend and kind of meld together as this dries. Now, this is what I was referring to. If you did not have a separate layer for inside your card, this is what you would see on the back of your card. So if I was to stamp and color directly on that, the back of my card would look like this. So this is why I'm adding it to a separate layer. So now let's do the same thing with our leaves. So I'm going to use my light and dark Granny Apple Green, and I'm not really going to do anything super fancy here. I'm just going to color in these leaves, and then I'll come back and add a little bit of detail with the dark Granny Apple Green and some veining with the dark Old Olive. So you can see it's pretty fast. And I'm just going to let those blueberries kind of steal the show. They're going to be in the center of our card, peeking through that peekaboo window. So now let's come in with our dark and kind of add some detail. The artists give us these great lines to work with so that it kind of takes the mystery out of where we should put our color. I love that. So now I'm coming back with my light and kind of going over that just to make sure it blends okay. As long as this paper is wet from the alcohol and the markers, your color is going to blend. So you don't want to work your color until you get it blended exactly how you want it. You just want to get the paper wet and get the color kind of where you want it. And then as they blend together and dry, the rest will kind of happen. So now I'm going to take my dark Old Olive and I'm just going to kind of go right over this veining. And then I'm just going to pick a few of these, not all of them, but just a few of these artist lines to add my color. And then I'm just going to leave it at that. And let me give you a close-up of this so you can see. My lighting is kind of dark. Sorry. Is that better? So what do you think? It's easier than you might think when you really want to add some shading and color. All right, so now let's add this to the inside of our card. But first, I'm going to take my dark blueberry bushel and give it a little splatter. And then I'm going to take my Wink of Stella. This is a relatively new Wink of Stella, so it's got some good paint in it. There we go. I'm getting some splatters. I love this. This is one of my favorite things to do, is to just kind of splatter it on. All right. So let me just kind of wipe up. I've got just an itty bitty mess, not much of one. I'm just going to wipe it up and get this adhesive off. It's right there. This mat is just absolutely amazing. Okay. So now let's adhere this to the inside of our card. So I'm just going to take some Tombow adhesive. Oh, and Facebook, I see, wants to kick me out again today. It's so frustrating. Let me get you back in here so that I can make sure that you see me. Facebook is telling me that I'm no longer recording, that the video is over, but I can clearly see myself here still on. Great. All right. Thanks, Polly. I'm glad you like it. Oh, thanks, Janet. I'm glad you like that. All right. So I'm just going to take some Tombow. I want to make sure I can line up that layer really well inside my card. So I'm just going to put a little bit of Tombow and just set this right inside. Line up the bottom. You could also cut this into a shape. You could do lots of different things with it. And now when I close that, actually, I think I did it backwards. I think I wanted it stamped that way. It was a little off center, so I'm just flipping it around because whoops. Well, it's not supposed to be hard to glue in. All right, let's be serious about this. There we go. Now it's lined up. And you don't want to run your hand over this because that wink of Stella is going to take a minute to dry. Now it's centered. Yay. Okay. I just put it in upside down. All right. So now we have this ready to go. So now let's work on our little focal area that's going to be right here. So to do that, we're going to pull in this small piece of basic white that we're going to stamp our sentiment on. And then we have our scrap strip of the same designer series paper that we used to make our card fronts. So this could be stamped in one of the blues, one of the greens. I decided to stick with the black since there was a black outline to the blueberry image. I thought the black kind of made it look most cohesive, but it's whatever you would like. And then inside, I'm going to add a sentiment as well, and I'm going to stamp it right down in this little corner here. So let's take the thank you stamp, and I'm first going to ink up the U. And I'm just going to ink that up off the corner of my ink pad. If you wanted to use your basic black marker and color this, you could do that as well. So let's just stamp the U in there. And then clean this really good. You don't want any shadows. And then I'm going to ink up the thank. And check it to make sure you don't have any part of U inked up. And then you can just center that over the top. And there's your sentiment. So now when your card is closed, you're not going to see it, but when it's open, you have that cute little sentiment tucked down there in the bottom. All right, so let's die cut this cute little shape. I love this little shape so much. I'm not even sure what to call this shape. Do you know what this shape is? It's not really a circle. Oh, thanks, Tracy. I'm the queen of half inking. I do that a lot. And I think that it gives you more versatility in your sentiments because sometimes you need something more vertical and your sentiment is too long to fit in the space. So I just will cut my stamps in half, or I'll ink up part of it, cover part with a Post-it and ink it up, or use a Stampin' Right marker, whatever I need to do to be able to get that sentiment to fit in the space. So we're going to put this here, and we're going to add that little strip behind it, and all I've done is flipped it over. Okay, so we have the small scale on one and the big on the other. Thanks, Tracy. I hope you're not mad. You like the Post-it? Yes, Janet. It's a really great trick, isn't it? Because it really does give you more use out of your stamps. So I'm going to use one of my favorites, the Banners Pick-a-Punch, except instead of doing a banner end, today I just decided to use this. So I'm going to slide this 1/2-inch piece. It fits right in that track. I'm going to flip it over and punch the end of my little strip here. And then you can just kind of guesstimate how long you want this to be and then trim it. So I want it to be about like that. So I'm going to cut this maybe here. So let's just take my scissors. If you would rather use a trimmer to make sure it's nice and straight, you could do that. I'm feeling wild, so I'm just going to guess. So behind this, I want to add a little silver bow, and this trim is from the Simply Elegant trim. I use this a ton as well. So I want to tie a bow, but I want this to be a little less wiry for this particular project. So I've shared this trick before, but just in case you missed it, I'm going to take a piece of this and I'm going to just kind of do this to the end to fray it a bit. And when you do that, you're going to see a white core that you can just pull out. You see that? That white core? You can just pull that out. And when you do that, it makes this a little less wiry and a little thinner. So you can layer it underneath things and it's just not quite as bulky. So now I'm going to tie my bow. And this, by the way, is great stuff because now you have all these fine little like strands. You see how you have all those little strands? You could take this and kind of mess it up a little bit like this, and you could take this and layer this, nest it behind a label, and it's a really great look as well. So if you like to save little odds and ends and incorporate them into your project, you'll just want to save that. All right, so now let's add this to our project kind of like that. So I think I'm just going to take a dimensional. I'm going to offset it just a little towards the left and add that dimensional over the top. And then I'm just going to put my sentiment there. And then I'm going to adhere that on my project. So like roughly half of it is going to be on the card. You want to make sure you don't get adhesive on the part that extends into your peekaboo window, or else you'll stick your project closed like I just did. So I extended my adhesive a little too far. So let's just rub that off. There we go. Now it won't stick itself shut, but there you go. There's your project. Last but not least, I need to put some more blingy blings on it. So I have the Tinsel Gems 4-pack. There's yellow, pink, blue, and green. I have an open pack here. So I'm just going to take a few of the blue ones. The green would look pretty too. And I'm just going to kind of scatter these on my project wherever you want them. Let's see, maybe one here. And over here. There we go. Yeah, there we go. What do you think? Do you like the small? Hi, Joan. Welcome. Thanks for jumping on today. So Janet says cutting up stamps and deconstructing ribbon. Oh, thanks. Yes. Everything is fair game, right? To modify and to work with. And when you cut your stamps, they can still go back together on your block very easily so that you can use them as they originally came in one piece. But oftentimes cutting them apart gives you more variation to be able to create custom sentiments, more so than what you already have. So thanks, Joan. So which one do you like better? Do you like the big plaid print or do you like the smaller plaid print? Do you have a preference? I don't know which one I like better. I was thinking I like this one, but the more I look at the small one, Tracy likes this one. Joan likes the big plaid as well. Yeah, it's pretty. I think this is such a beautiful plaid. I love this when this paper came out. Oh, Polly likes the big one too. So it looks like the big plaid is the winner. Yeah. But it's a cute and easy card, isn't it? It's just a little bit of coloring, and you can make the blueberries as fancy or as simple as you want. And I find that when you have a colored image, especially if you didn't want to do any depth, if you just wanted to color them in super simple with one color, by adding the little splatters, it really elevates it without putting a lot of time into your coloring technique. So just a little trick to try if you haven't done that yet. All right, so let's move on to card number 2. So card number 2, I thought I would share some watercoloring with you. Uh-oh, where did I put it? Card number 2 has disappeared. Oh, here it is. It was hiding under something. So here's the second card we're going to make. So again, Nothing fancy. I really love the blueberry image. I think that it's just fun and it's good for so many things. You could even color them red and make them like little cranberries, even though cranberries, I don't really think will grow on a bush like that, but I don't really know. All right, so for this watercoloring today, I'm going to use the Fluid 100 watercolor paper. And I used this on last week's project too. So I'm sharing more ideas with it for you. What I love about this paper is the texture. And I don't know if the camera is going to pick up the texture very well. Let's see. Yeah, I think you can see the texture a little bit when it focuses. Focus, little camera. And I just really like the texture, and it's easy to add the distressing. So when you watercolor on the watercolor paper, this doesn't absorb the ink like basic white does. So I like to use StazOn to keep my image nice and clean and not get muddy. And I should have grabbed the one I forgot and stamped it on with Memento ink, and then I started to color and my image turned gray. So it's an absolutely amazing technique if you want a black and white image to stamp with your Memento on your watercolor paper and then use your water painters to pull that ink through your image, and you'd have a really cool colored gray black and white image. But I want color, so I'm going to use my StazOn. So the other supplies I used for this card, for this particular one, I used a blueberry bushel card base. And then I cut the second to largest die from the Countryside Corners die set. I haven't used this in a while, and I thought it was time to pull it out. So I used the second to the largest to create this layer. And I also cut out my stamped image with that same die, and then I offset them. And it's so crazy because honestly, I hadn't even looked. I need to do a better job of this because I did a similar card last week with that set too. I didn't even look to see that they offset their stamped image the same way in the catalog, except I did it with the die cut. And then I used a piece of designer series paper, which I ran through the Fern 3D embossing folder for the background. And this paper is from the Fresh as a Daisy designer series paper pack. That's the beautiful blue I used. But there's some really great background prints in here. But I thought it would be fun for you to help me construct the card that I make in a different colorway. So here's the card that we're going to make. So you get to help me pick which color we do. So I have a couple of options here. So we can do the same one. Or I brought in the Bright and Beautiful Designer Series paper, which I thought would have some really fun blue and green prints. If you want, we can do one in Lemon Lime Twist and do a patterned background. Or I can recreate this card in blue. So would you like it in green with a colorful background, or would you like it in blue? Or we could do blue with a colorful background. You get to help me pick. So tell me what you would like. This is a card that you're going to help me build. So green or blue for my card base, and then patterned paper or blue paper for the background. So 2 choices. Tell me what you think. Does anyone have a preference? Green and blue. I know there's a little delay, so I'll give it just a minute. Does anyone have a preference? Oh, so Polly would like to see blue. So you would like me to recreate this card, or you would like blue card base with a patterned designer series paper background? This one or this one? Ooh, pattern DSP. All right. So since Polly was the first one, we're going to make her a color combo. All right. So let's go with it. So we're going to use designer series paper from the Bright and Beautiful designer series paper pack. I love this. And it has Blueberry Bushel and Azure Afternoon for the blues in here, as well as some Misty Moonlight. So all three of those blues would work really great with this Blueberry Bushel background. So let's take this and we're going to cut this down. I'm going to cut it down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. So let's cut that down to 4 inches. And I'm going to cut 3/4 of an inch off the bottom to make it 5 1/4 inches. All right, so that's what we're going to do. And I'm not going to emboss this one. I'm going to just let the pattern of the paper be what we have. So let's fold this card base. This is a Blueberry Bushel card base cut 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 and scored at 4 1/4. So it's a standard card base. And now I'm going to adhere this onto the front of it with some Stampin' Seal. This is just going to go in the center. This is going to be really pretty. All right, so here's our card base. So let's set this aside, and I've pre-die cut the second from the largest die from the Countryside Corners die set. This one, the second from the largest. I've already die cut that, so now I'm going to set this aside and we are going to work on some stamping. So I'm going to use Stays On to stamp my image. And I just dropped my Stays On cleaner and it rolled somewhere. I have no idea where. Oh, it fell in my trash can. That's funny. All right, so we have it. So I use Stays On all-purpose cleaner. We have this in the Stampin' Up! Catalog to clean my Stays On. But honestly, if you are stamping your image and immediately cleaning this with a little rubbing, it does come off your stamp without needing the Stays On cleaner. But it is faster to use the Stays On cleaner. So let's open this and stamp our image. So I'm going to use the larger blueberry image that is on the stem, and we're going to ink this up with the Stays On pad. And again, this is a fabric pad, so I always like to put the pad to the stamp. And this has a little texture, so when you stamp it, you do want to give it a little extra time to let that ink transfer. And anytime I'm stamping a black outline image that I'm going to color, I want that image to be as nice and crisp as possible, so I try to give it a little bit of extra time to transfer. And I'm going to stamp this twice because if we have time, I'm going to show you a third method to color the oh boy, I think I put these too close together. We'll see. I may have to flip this over to die cut it. I should have put this one over a little further. So I'm going to flip this over and stamp it. Let's take our die out and see how much space we have. So I'm going to die cut this. I'm just going to center it and then run it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. right, so look how pretty that is. I just like a little bit of extra detail the shape of the die provides. And I was able to cut them both out without restamping it, so that's great. And then we can work on coloring. So I'm going to set one of these aside for our second coloring technique if we have time. And I'm going to show you how I watercolored this. So let me clean this. So what I do is I just take this StazOn cleaner and I put it right down on my stamp. And I rub the stamp and get all that ink disrupted on my stamp. And then I just simply take my my little Stampin' Chamois and I kind of absorb it off. And that's all I do. And then it's clean. If you have the other style Stampin' Scrub, you could use that as well. That cleans this really, really well. All right, so now you don't have to worry about your StazOn ink being on your stamp. All right, so now let's talk about coloring this. Whoops, it's a little greasy right here. That is like an oily cleaner, whereas our other cleaner is kind of water-based. So I'm going to pull in some ink to color this, and I kind of stayed with the same colorway. I used Early Espresso for the branches, and then Granny Apple Green and Blueberry Bushel for the actual coloring. And then I'm using my aqua painters, and I have a little bit of water that I placed in my silicone mat that came with my glass mat. And that's what I'm going to use. I prefer that to water in my water painters. I feel like it gives me a little better control. So I'm going to use the smallest water pen, and I'm just going to put some ink right there. You could put it right on your glass as well. You just want to be able to pick it up. So I'm just going to get this wet. You can make sure it's clean. And I just want to make this a little bit wet so that my ink blends nicely. So I'll pick up a little bit of it and I'm just going to add it in this space. And you don't have to get fancy with it if you don't want to. You can add a little extra shading if you want. Make it a little darker down here. Maybe bring something up a little bit. But then when you're done, I just wipe it right on here. So very easy. It's very easy to work with watercoloring. So now I'm going to switch to a little bigger brush to make it faster. And I'm going to work with my green. And I'm just going to take this green. So let's move this up out of the way. And I'm just going to put some green right here down on my glass mat so that I can pick it up with my water painter. So I'm just, let me turn this so that you can follow me easy. So I'm just going to get a little green in there and then color in these spaces. Now Fluid 100 watercolor paper, it's thicker and heavier. It's meant to absorb the water so you can work your color without your paper pilling. Like if you're using basic white or thick basic white. Now, I would never try this with basic white. I think the paper would pill. So now I'm just going to pick up some of my green color and you can see how it just kind of spreads. So I added water to my paper surface first. And then when I add my color, you can see it just kind of bleeds into that space. So you get a really great kind of watercolor look. And you can work your color as much or as little as you want. The more you work it, the more consistent the color will be throughout your image. If you just let the color run through the water that's on the image, it's going to give you, whoops, I had a lot of ink on that. I didn't mean to do that. So if you just kind of add the color, you can just kind of watch it bleed through the image. And then eventually that water will evaporate up and soak into the paper and it'll dry. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit of this, and I don't really want a lot of color here. I probably should have done this with the small. And then there's a little tiny bit of the stem right there that I want to get. Now, as this dries, you can come in and you can start layering color. Now, I'm going to keep a drier brush and pick up some more of my green, and I'm going to come in and start adding some darker green accents. Again, I'm going to use those artist lines. They were given to me for a reason, so I'm going to use them. And I'm going to add some darker color there with a dry brush so that the color stays right where I'm putting it. And I'm just going to add that in on all 4 leaves. So do you have any questions on watercoloring? I am by no means an artist, so this is just kind of all self-discovery by practicing and trying different things. But I really do like using the Fluid 100 when I watercolor. All right, so I'm just going to clean off my brush here and make sure it's nice and clean. And then I'm going to move on to my blueberries. So let's take some clean water here and make the blueberries wet. Get that red paper off from my cutting plates. There we go. So now the blueberries have water on them. And I'm just going to wipe this green ink off my glass mat here. And I'm going to add my blue ink. I'm just going to smush it right down on my, oh, I don't think you can see it. Let's see, I want you to be able to see me picking it up. There we go. Now I think you can see it. So I'm using Blueberry Bushel, and I'm just going to pick that up, and I'm just going to put it right in that wet space here. Now, the more ink you add, obviously, the more intense your color will be. And now these down here were a little drier when I added my color. So I'm going to come in with a bit of a drier brush and just kind of add some blue along these artist lines here, where your eye naturally wants to make it look darker. So this is kind of giving me the definition and depth. And you may need to let this dry a little bit. I'm getting a little bit of bleeding outside the lines, so I add a little bit too much water maybe. But now you can see that you have some depth to your blueberries, and I think you can kind of get the picture here. So I'm just going to clean this off. And you can see that we now have our watercolored image. Hi, Carrie. Thanks for joining. So do you see how we've kind of created some depth? And all I did was add some darker ink right around the perimeter of those where our artist markings were, and it's just naturally created that depth. Now, if you want to, you can come in and also add some ink onto the tips of the blueberries here if you want to. But by doing that, you will lose a little bit of your depth that you created. So I'll do it on a couple. These are still a little bit too wet, so if I do it, it's just going to make the color look a little more uniform. But I think you get the idea. All right, so let's set this aside because I'm done watercoloring for now. And then let's work on our sentiment while this dries. Oh, and I better wipe up this blue ink or it's going to wind up on a project where I didn't mean for it to be. So I'm just going to take my cleaning cloth and look at, I just one swipe and it's gone. It's so nice. Okay. So let's bring in the rest of our card here. And we're going to layer this. So I'm going to stamp my sentiment on a piece of, I might be able to use, oh yeah, I can. I'm just going to use this strip that's along the bottom here from die cutting my pieces. So this is just a strip of the Fluid 100 watercolor paper. So I'm just going to straighten it out in case my die wasn't. This is thick stuff. I love it. Okay, so now you don't have to stamp in StazOn if you don't want, but you certainly can. So let's just ink this up. And this sentiment says sending you bunches of birthday wishes. So we're making a birthday card. Hopefully I get that straight because I'm not over the top of it. I can't see it. I don't like that. I smushed it. Let's flip it over and stamp on the back. But see, I cleaned that right away and you can see it came pretty clean. So it will come clean if you clean the ink off right away. And I think that the red rubber cling stamps are a little easier to clean than the photopolymer, but they both come clean. All right, so I'm going to use the grid markings on this to help me get it straight. And I'm going to put it way down here at the end because I want it cut kind of short. I'm not going to have a lot around it because it's kind of big. I don't want it to take up too much of the card front. All right, so I'm just cleaning this off right away. Let's see, it comes clean. Whoops, I missed that side. There we go. So it comes clean if you clean it right away. So now let's trim this. So we're going to take our little trimmer and trim this kind of close so that I don't have a lot of border surrounding it because it will take up a bit of the front. I don't want to hide those pretty blueberries. So I'm just going to trim off this bottom just a tad bit more. And I'm happy with that. So we'll use that. So now let's assemble this. So I'm going to, I think this is dry enough that we can assemble. I'm just going to offset this and adhere it to our card front. I do have some linen thread here that I can put around the front, but maybe white twine might look a little better with this paper, but it's okay. Before I do that, I'm actually going to come in with my fingernail and I'm just going to distress the edges of this watercolor paper. It's kind of a fun paper to do this with because it's thick, so it crinkles really nice when you do this. You could also use the edge of your scissors or your bone folder. Anything will work to do this. And you can do it as much or as little as you want to give you the look that you want. And then I just kind of rolled this top corner a little bit to roll in that little corner, which is kind of fun. All right, so now I will get this how I want it, offset just a tiny little bit. And when I'm happy with it, I'll just flip it up and throw some adhesive under it and not even pick it up off the paper. I'll just flip half up and then flip the other half up. And now we can put it on our card front with some dimensionals. Hi, Kathy. Welcome. Thanks for jumping on. All right. So let's put this on our card front. And I think what I'm going to do is, instead of wrapping the linen thread around like I did on the other one, I'm just going to make a bow and we'll put it on with a glue dot. So let's do that. Let's just tie a linen thread bow. You could even do a double layer. Ooh, you know what might be really fun? Let's do this. Do you remember that white stuff? Ooh, let's use this. Ooh, yeah, this will be really pretty. I'm just gonna kind of rough it up a little bit to separate some of these strands, and let's see if it's long enough for me to tie a bow. Oh yeah, this will be pretty. And then you can see this in action. So this is the core of the Simply Elegant trim from the last project that I pulled out of the center. Ooh, look how neat that looks. Ooh, it's so soft looking. All right, so that's a really tiny knot. So I'm going to cut my glue dot in half so it's not so bulky, and then I'm going to fold it in half like this, and I'm going to put this dot right on there. So now we can have it on our project without having a big sticky glue dot sticking out from behind. It's just kind of fine. There we go. And then we have those pretty tails. Ooh, that's pretty. Can you see how pretty and soft that looks? I like that. All right. And then all we need to do here is add our sentiment to our card front, wherever you want it added. I think maybe I like it here. So let's put a couple dimensionals on the back. And add that wherever you want it, up here, down here. I think I kind of like that. There we go. And then last but not least, let's add some embellishments. So on the original card, I had used the tinsel gems, which would still be really pretty, but I also brought in these, which I think I'm going to use on this card. So this is the ombre matte decorative dots, and we also have rhinestones, but I think I like these. Let's use these. So what I like about these is you get all these different colors, so you can kind of pick the tone that works really well. So maybe we should go with green on this one. Let's do some green. Let's go here, up by these leaves, and kind of keep the greens with the green. Come on, there we go. And down here. And I think I like that, just a little tiny bit. So there you go, same card. All I did was mix up the designer series paper per Polly's pick. So what do you think? Which one do you like better? Do you like the blue background or the colorful background? Does anyone have a preference? Oh, hi, Tammy. Welcome. What do you think? Which one do you like? Ooh, Tammy can't choose. Kathy likes them both. All right, so let's take a peek at both projects for today. Oops, my sentiment just fell off. Here we go. I need to add another let's add another dimensional underneath that. Make sure it sticks good. We don't want it falling off in the envelope, and then our recipient will get it and they'll be like, oh, this card doesn't say anything. Oh, so Tammy says she likes the colorful one if she has to choose. Okay. So I'm just over here struggling with dimensionals that are sticking to my fingers. Okay, I'm going to put this underneath and put that back down. There we go. There, that's much better. All right, so we have our 2 plaids and our colorful blueberry. All right, so there are some projects made with the blueberry bunches stamp set. The other thing I was going to show you if we had time, but we're out of time, is I was going to watercolor this with watercolor pencils to kind of show you yet a third look. But I think you get the idea that you could really color these any way that you wanted to with whatever medium you wanted. So which one is my favorite of these 2? I think I like the blue one. And I think I like the large plaid. So I think these 2. But I would be thrilled with any of them. You could send me any of these and I'd be happy with them. All right, so thanks everyone. It's always fun having you jump on with me and spend some time creating together on Friday afternoons. I hope you have a really fun weekend and something to look forward to. Oh, thanks, Tammy. Tammy loves the large plaid. I hope you have something to look forward to this weekend. And I am going to look forward to creating with the new online exclusives that are going to launch soon. Stay tuned for me to jump on and share some of those items with you. And I will look forward to seeing you then and next week. Bye, everyone.